Hi, welcome to Angel's Nook. Furniture is just the beginning. Be prepared to be inspired by a wide range of projects and finishing techniques. This set of pumpkins I'm going to be working on to give them that very pale, beigey, dusty look. Some of them are shiny when you see them, but they're a very neutral decor piece for using pumpkins that again can be used during the holiday season, during the fall, or can be part of your decor all the time. And the two colors I'm going to use for the base coat are Tapestry, which is this color, and Seadrift. Now that looks like, how is that really pale other than this one? But you'll see as the process goes on how that it is. So that's what these are going to get. And I'm also going to be doing in a step farther down with at least one of these. Some texture additive. I'm really liking the effect that the brush is creating over this pumpkin. So I'm not going to roll it, knowing that I'm adding another layer of finish over this. Let that one dry, and I will show you what the Seadrift is going to look like as a base coat compared to that. And I'm going to choose to put that over this one, which would be a little harder to cover, with a dark, the fact that this is starting out dark. I'm liking what this is doing as well on this pumpkin. So I'm not going to roll it either. Piece of glue fuzz off the pumpkin that I missed. And you should be able to see the difference in the tonality of those two, but this is starting to come closer to what I want the finished look to be. So off camera, I'm going to paint these either the Seadrift or the Tapestry, and we'll come back to look at the next stage of it. Off camera, I had to finish painting these in 3 steps. I did the bottom, let it dry, and then so I had something to get a hold of. Then I painted the stems. So what you saw when I painted the main part of this, the other 2 had to be in 2 separate steps, just letting them dry as they went. Because this is a plasticky type material, I waited a full day before putting the next step on here, just to let this adhere really well. These 3 are the Seadrift, these 4 are the Tapestry. And I purposely wanted this streaky effect on here, which is why I'm not putting a second coat of paint on this. This was the greenish, brownish, orangish one. It was weird colors on it. In fact, this was almost a puce chartreuse on this, not normal colors, which is one of the reasons I chose to turn this into this style pumpkin for this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some highlights of brown onto this using the Vintage Brown Antiquing Gel. I'm not going to get much onto my brush, and then I'm going to pounce to get it into the brushes and to get most of it off. And then I'm going to add some additional variegation on this. I just want to add some additional texture to it before I do the next step. And depending on how this dries, I may leave 1 or 2 of these pumpkins without the next step. When you're adding this on, you want to follow the directions of the wedges of the pumpkin. That was good. Move that up a little bit so I'm less likely to put my elbow in it again. That's what it looks like over Tapestry, and now I'll put it over the Seadrift. Put it definitely between the lines that are underneath and what I'm doing now. This is adding more texture to these. I'm pouncing extra because I got more on my brush than I intended when I dipped to get more. These are able to be set back down after doing the work I just did, simply because it's on there so thin that it dries dry enough to sit onto a surface to finish drying. I'm going to do the rest of these off camera through this step, and we'll move on to the next one. One of the things I forgot to remind you guys of, if you're using a chip brush, you can pull, I'm trying not to get it over where I'm working. You can pull to try to get bristles, loose bristles out. And if you knock it back and forth across your hand, that will usually knock out any currently loose brushes so that you rarely get anything on there. I don't think I'm going to use a brush to apply this next coat. I'm going to try something different and see if it works to give me the look that I want. I'm going to try a piece of the true applicator. Again, I'm going to pounce a lot of it off so I can get a thin coat here. And I think it's going to do exactly what I want. This one was the Tapestry base coat. There's a piece of bristle that had gotten onto the down here, and I didn't see it when I was knocking on that piece. Go back, look and see any place that it's too heavy, and it creates a really soft, neutral pumpkin. Now this one I want to do something a little different with, but I have to get this coat on first, and then I will show you what I want to do to it. If you keep swiping, it's one of the cool things with the antiquing gel. You can get it to the tone you want and not have deep marks of white anywhere on it. If you notice, I'm following the wedges on the pumpkin. I'm not going across, I'm not going in circles. And if I had applied this to the whole thing and then tried to wipe it, I couldn't get this look without adding water, without misting it. But I'm liking the control I have with this. And the fact that I'm working on the silicone mat from HTP is allowing me to set this on here and not pull a lot of the antiquing back off. Down here on the bottom, I just want it to blend. I'm not worried about what direction it's going in. I'm going to wait until this dries to put some white onto this. Plus, I also need to be able to hold on to this for what I want to do with this right now, to add another layer of texture to it. HTP sells a texture additive. You see it used with their concrete counters, but it's also good for creating texture on other things. And it does not take much of it. It activates really quickly. You can use this in paint to create a stone look over something that is already smooth, but you can make it look like old stone, especially if you put you want just a little bit more in that. And that's the secret to this stuff too. Add it a little bit at a time. Or you have a blob that you cannot use. Mix it in small batches. Don't try to do your whole piece with one section of it. Now, what I want to do with this, and it's thickening up nicely, I just want to add some texture over this in different places. It is already trying to set up too much on me. Twisting the brush back and forth. Sometimes it will keep working for you, and sometimes it just reaches a point that it will not adhere anymore, and you have to mix a new batch. But this is pretty much gotten on here what I wanted, and looks very similar to what I saw in a high-end catalog that wanted a very high-end price, which I'm not in the mood to pay, if it's something you can quickly do yourself. I had the texture additive from other projects, so it was definitely an option for me. So you can hopefully see what it has added on to this. This one also, I need to work on the stem after this is dried so I can handle it. So I will put finish on these. I think on all of them they'll get a glaze, and then if I decide to do something else to it, I will show you what I do for a next step after that. Sometimes in the midst of working on something, you discover something in how you're applying finishes, and that's what I discovered off camera while I was working with the sponge to apply a thin coat of the whitewash. And what I discovered was, because I had to get into some tight places on another one with the brush, and I had to get some water in there to get it out, I discovered that misting with the water first worked really well to let me have control over putting the whitewash on, to get a really thin glaze with it that was working better than using the sponge. And hopefully you can see this is just giving me the lightest possible wash with this. You do want to avoid misting where you've already worked. But there's very, very little. Hopefully some of those water droplets will show up. And I can think of a lot of times where this would have made applying the amount of finish that I wanted with one of the antiquing gels a lot better. This area doesn't have water. I squirted my brush right there because I want to soften this white here, but I don't want to pool water down in the bottom there. That's done a really nice job of letting me have a very light, even coat of the whitewash glaze over this. So it's just another way you can go about trying to use the antiquing gels. These are all now very soft, warm, neutral. They can go with a wide range of colors. They could sit out for longer periods of time in the year. This one, I chose not to put a glaze over, both to let you see it and because the color tones here are really nice. I did glaze the stem with white to mute it down, but if you look at the two here, you can see hopefully there's a color tone difference on these. This one had the tapestry base. This one has the Seadrift. This, I was really happy with how it turned out, and I decided not to do anything else to the stem so that the texture of the pumpkin itself is what popped out on this. And then these remaining ones, this is the tapestry base, so is this. They've all had a little bit of white added to the top here. And then this one, doing it with the water, gave it a much thinner coat, which you can really see that there's a different tonality here in these. And in person, it's really hard when you've got this close of tones to be able to show you really clearly on video. But there's definitely a range of tonalities here, so that if they are scattered together or in a center piece on a table, they're really going to highlight different things. And depending on what you're putting with it, if you're putting some autumn leaves with it, some other textures, pine cones, whatever, you're really going to get some depths of contrasts on here. But it's a really simple way to take what you may have found really cheap or on clearance cheap and turn it into something that is a really nice elevated piece of decor for your house. Thanks for watching. Be sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any of the new videos.